Good, good day. For this segment of my tutorial, I will discuss in brief Form 2307. Uh, what you need to know, the basics in the form. So let's let's start. So Form 2307, or the Certificate of Creditable Tax Withheld at Source, is the form that you will use when you transact business for goods and services to any private entity, government, or any owned and controlled corporations, instrumentalities, and agencies. So, what it is form used for? This is the form that you will accomplish and issue to recipients of income subject to expanded withholding tax paid by a payer or withholding agent, including government money payments made by the government office, like I mentioned earlier, showing therein the monthly breakdown of the total income payments made and the total taxes withheld and remitted during the quarter or period. So Form 2307 will be very useful um, for taxpayers in understanding at the end of a reporting period. So ang reporting period is quarterly or annually. What would be your net tax due, whether it is in percentage tax, in VAT, or in income tax due to the government or due to the BIR. So, ito yung form na gagamitin natin for any credits. Pag sinabing credits, bawas yan dun sa tax due mo. That's, I will discuss what is the effect of that to your net tax payable much later. For expanded withholding taxes, these are deductions on income payments. Pag sinabi income payments, if we say you have purchases of assets or payments of expenses, then when you pay to the supplier, supplier or the seller, you will deduct the amount of designated by the law as to what amount should be withheld. So that is in itself a complicated topic, so I will discuss it in another session. But for now, let's just get familiar with the form itself. So for expanded withholding taxes, the certificate should be attached to the quarterly or annual income tax return. So pag quarterly, it's the form 1701Q for individuals, and then form 1702Q for business entities, or sa form na to is just non-individual. So that would be corporations, partnerships, and other associations. And then the annual income tax return, it would be 1701 for individuals. Pag sinabi individuals, tao. So yung sole proprietor, professionals, yung mixed income earners are those either a business person or in the practice of a profession, at the same time an employee. And so the amount of withholding tax shall be allowed as a credit against the income tax liability of the income recipient in the taxable quarter or the year in which the income was earned or received. So in simple, translated simply as when you're the buyer, so kunwari meron kang store, you buy goods for your inventory. Nagbibenta ka ng motor parts. So ikaw, bibili ka sa isang supplier mo, say, outside of your place, or kunwari if you're from the province, bibili ka sa city. So that person, any amount na ibabayad mo dun sa mga binili mo sa kanya, aawasan mo or you deduct the designated percentage for withholding dun sa ibabayad mo sa kanya. For example, So, ang ibabayad mo sa kanya is 100,000. And then, if, for example, top taxpayer ka, or according dun sa Revenue Regulations number 18, 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So, kung hindi ka doon naman pasok, pero yung if hindi siya pasok doon sa all the other categories, you will withhold either 1% for goods and then 2% for services. So, kung motor parts, it's goods. So, yung 100,000 minus 1,000, yun yung ibabayad mo sa supplier mo. Hindi ka magbayad ng 100,000. Yung 1,000 nun, yun yung i-report mo sa BIR in the form 2307 for the month kung kailan mo siya pinurchase. So, ikaw ang withholding agent, or ikaw yung agent na nangongolekta for the BIR. Kailangan mo itong ibayad sa BIR, and then the amount that is due the supplier or the seller is less than this amount. Malinaw ba? I think it's a little bit confusing pa, but there's an illustration below. What then is a creditable tax? A creditable tax is such as is withheld, retained, or kept by the buyer of goods and services from his payment to suppliers or vendors. So you keep it in favor of the BIR. So kung ang babayaran mo for the asset purchase or expense payment mo is 200,000, and then 1% on is 2,000 pesos, you remit 198,000 dun sa supplier or sa vendor, and then the 2,000 you gave it to the BIR. So when you record the expenses, your asset is still 200,000, but the actual cash payout mo dun sa supplier mo is only 198. Your total cash out or cash payout mo is still 200,000, only that you split it between the supplier or the vendor and then to the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Anong effect nito? Ikaw nang kolekta ng tax for the government. What is the rationale for this? You know, yung system natin ng taxation is hindi ganun tayo ka-high-tech that all the transactions, the buying and the selling of goods will be captured by the tax bureau. Hindi naman nila makukuha lahat ng transactions eh. So the bureau now gave you the burden because, you know, at arm's length transaction, alam ng mga people involved how much they actually pay out. So because both of you are taxpayers, and you know, ano kasi tayo eh, voluntary assessment. So voluntary assessment system tayo, hindi tayo yung ina-audit isa-isa ng gobyerno, unless lang talaga that there would be red flags in your returns, or andun ka sa mga tax account management program, or you're one of the big taxpayers in your revenue district office, then hindi naman lahat kasi na-audit. So in the scheme of voluntary assessment, the people doing the transactions would know how much was the actual exchange of values between the buyer and the seller. So ikaw ngayon na magre-remit sa government. And the effect of that. So the peso value of the taxes withheld is offset to the net peso value of the taxes due. Now, even if it was only a percentage to the expenses that you incurred, or the asset that you have bought, that would be offset dun na sa net income tax due, the bottom line figure after you have deducted the cost of sales and the ordinary allowable deductions, which are ordinary business expenses. So bottom line figure na, hindi ka magdededuct doon sa taas. And then for the creditable withholding taxes, it is offset to the income tax due, so minus yan, and then the net tax due for the first quarter of 2022 is 80,000. So it's on a peso to peso value deduction. Taxpayers who are accredited suppliers of the Philippine government through the field jobs procurement system or any of its political subdivision, instrumentalities, agencies, and are required to be deducted with percentage tax if one is not a registered VAT taxpayer. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Kasi if you're an individual, you're either a percentage taxpayer or a VAT taxpayer. Now, what makes the distinction? People, taxpayers who have a gross annual income, no, it's not income, gross annual sales, receipts, or revenue of 3 million and below shall be a percentage taxpayer. Now, if you will ask me, meron pa tayong 8% taxpayer, di ba? So, that also is a kind of a percentage taxpayer, but it's more of like the 8% gross income taxation. So, dun to papasok sa gross amount. And that one will do away with the filing of the percentage tax per quarter. So, para siyang a flat rate given to the taxpayer to cover for the income tax and the percentage tax in itself. Kasi dati, ang percentage tax is 3%, diba? So, parang if you're an 8% taxpayer, in effect, parang kang mayroong 3% for percentage tax and then 5% for the equivalent income tax on your monthly or quarterly gross receipts. So, that's a complicated topic in itself, but, just to give a brief background between the percentage tax and a VAT taxpayer. So if your gross receipts, gross sales, or gross revenue exceeds 3 million, then you, by law, you are automatically a VAT taxpayer. So unless there are certain exceptions to being a VAT taxpayer na, because even with being a VAT taxpayer, meron tatlong category. There's VAT exempt for all those VAT exempt transactions, and then there's zero rated VAT, and then the regular VAT, which is subject to 12% on top of the amount for the goods and services. So it's a different topic, but I have to discuss it in passing. So the amount withheld shall be offset against the total amount due in percentage taxes for the quarter. So the peso value of the percentage taxes withheld is offset against the net peso value of the percentage taxes due. To illustrate, so if the percentage tax due for the first quarter of 2022 is 100,000, and then you got for all your government government contracts or procurements that you have entered into, then you receive from the government in Form 2307 10,000, then that can be offset with your percentage tax due for the first quarter of 2022. Supposing that the total percentage tax due from all your sales will have to be 100,000, the amount withheld is only 10,000, then the net percentage tax due for the first quarter of 2022 is 90,000. So, question. Dun ba sa regular transactions mo na not with the government, merong percentage tax withholding? The answer is no. Only the government requires percentage taxes to be withheld. But what is the impact of this? So if you're a business entity having sales to the government and to private individuals or private entities, your total sales will still be reported for both client type, but only your sales to the government will have an amount withheld from what they would pay to you. So that the net percentage tax due for the first quarter is net of any of that amount which the government has withheld. Now, VAT withholding is a very complicated topic because it crosses many many changes already from the train law. Not much in the I think there's also an update in the create law. But in jest, let's discuss it in the next slides. So I've discussed previously that if your monthly gross receipts, no, annual gross receipts, sales or revenue exceeds 3 million, then you will be a VAT taxpayer. Value-added tax is different from income tax. So for purposes of this illustration, let's focus muna dun sa VAT aspect for this slide. So VAT taxpayers files monthly VAT declaration in Form 2550M and quarterly in Form 2550Q. I will have a separate slide and separate presentation for these two forms, but we'll not discuss it here. So taxpayers who are accredited suppliers of the Philippine government through PhilJEP's procurement system, any of its political subdivision, instrumentalities, and agencies are required to be deducted with 5% creditable VAT. Previously, hindi ito creditable VAT. This is a final VAT. But with the changes made in the law, hindi na siya creditable. Hindi na siya final VAT. So, creditable na siya. Ibabawas mo na siya dun sa total. Now, this would, if not all of your transactions are to the government, before we will have to prorate the amount of input VAT that you will deduct from your output VAT because of this. But now, since everything is creditable, so whatever is your transaction with the government or the private entity, offset siya against your output VAT. Now, if you're not familiar what is an output VAT and an input VAT, let's discuss it in another session. But as a brief intro, output VAT is for your sales, input VAT is for your purchases or expenses. So yan. And then less the creditable VAT, then any amount, the difference from your output VAT less your input VAT and creditable VAT will now be the net VAT due if it returns a positive number, and an overpayment for the specific quarter or for the specific quarter. If, like in this example, your total output VAT is 1.2 million, pero ang nabawas is 1.3 million, then that's an overpayment. What will happen if there's an overpayment? You apply it to the next quarter. So kung next quarter naman is meron ka ng net VAT due, you will offset this 100,000 against it. It's on a peso to peso value. Medyo komplikado na to, but I think you can still follow through. But this is the effect of the VAT withholding in 2307 for your transactions with the government. This is in general how the form is shown. So there's this first month of the quarter, the second month of the quarter, and then this third month of the quarter. The first, second, and third month of the quarter will depend on what accounting period you have. So, and then in the accounting cycle in general, for example, if it's a calendar period, the first month of the first quarter is January. The first month of the second quarter is April. The first month of the third quarter is July. The first month of the fourth quarter is October. Now, if you follow a fiscal year and other than December 31, so for example, if your fiscal year end is June 30, the first month of your first quarter would be July. The first month of your second quarter would be October. The first month of your third quarter would be January, and the first month of your fourth quarter is April. So that's how you will consider this form and how you will fill it out. The amount here, to be considered for the income payment is the full amount. But what makes the difference here is if you're a percentage taxpayer, whatever is the selling price, it's for the whole amount that you will declare here, and then multiply it with the multiplier rate, which is right now is 1%. So, ganon. But if you're a VAT taxpayer, the gross amount is always, there's always an embedded amount of plus 12%. So for example, if your invoice price is 120,000, paano ka magka-come up ng income payment mo sans or without the VAT? So that's 120,000 divided by 1.12 or divided by 112%. So that will return magkano ba? Alpha, let me check quickly. How much is that? 120 divided by 1.1 divided by 1.12. So the income payment before VAT is 107,142.85. Yung amount na ilalagay mo dyan. You don't include the VAT portion because that's not the actual income payment. VAT is on top of it. So there, that makes the difference. And then at the back of the form, if you print it, yung form na meron sa BIR is back to back to eh. But when you print it from your file, hindi to, there's a page 1 and page 2. Page 1 na lang i-print mo. And then find time na lang to know what's on the overleaf. Dun sa likod, ano yung mga the overleaf of Form 2307 are the applicable rates that you will use in withholding. So, for example, under the new rules in the revenue regulation, those earning 3 million and below individuals will only be withheld 5% withholding taxes. Those top taxpayers would have either a 1% for goods and 2% for services. For professionals, if one is if one is engaged in a certain profession, then there is also an applicable amount of withholding taxes that should be withheld to you. It's either a 10% or a 15%, and then there's a 5%. So as for the individual rates of withholding taxes, we'll discuss it in another session kasi masyadong mahaba. So if, for example lang naman, regular goods, regular services, subcontractors, if ang subcontractor mo is a business entity, an artificial being like a corporation or a partnership, then the threshold amount of 720,000 is what will be considered. So mag-iiba pa ang amount ng i-withhold mo depende sa kung anong type na transaction. So that is what you will check at the overleaf of Form 2307. Now for rental or rent expense, the withholding tax percentage is 5%. So again, if your supplier or if your lessor is VAT taxpayer, then any invoice amount would already have the plus 12%. So when you compute the amount that you should withhold, you take away the VAT portion. But if you're a percentage taxpayer, whatever is in the official receipt or whatever is the contract value of the rent per month, wala kang ibabawas. I hope it's clear and I hope you're able to figure it out. So this is all for Form 2307. I can't expand it, but the top portion, which is the wait, I'll have to pause. I'll have to magnify this before I'll continue. In the previous page, in the front page of Form 2307, the payee is the supplier or the seller of goods or services, and he's the one which your income payment to him will be withheld with a specific rate per transaction, per type of transaction or per type of taxpayer. And then overleaf, dito sa likod na, makikita mo na kung ano yung, what are the kind of income payment and who are the taxpayers that you will withhold so much percentage taxes. If you read through and find what is the content, what are the contents of the overleaf page, then you will find this. If you fill out the form in the alpha list, that's another. I will discuss it in another session, how to fill it out using that the alpha list, BIR alpha list. I think it's version 17 now. So there you have it. I hope meron na kayong appreciation what is Form 2307 and what is the effect of your net income tax, percentage, and value-added tax at the end of each period or each annual accounting cycle. So, in essence naman, in general, wala namang accounting cycle or accounting period na over 12 months. So, yung the periodic reporting is usually quarterly for income, and then first, second, and third quarter you will remit in stages. So whatever is your income tax for that period, and then for the annual return, yung fourth quarter mo, hindi ka na magsasubmit ng 1701Q for the fourth quarter, but that's already your annual return. So for income tax purposes, tatlong 1701Q or 1702Q, and then the annual return, which is 1701 and 1702. Now, dito sa percentage taxes, so with the implementation of the CREATE law, it's either 1%, 5%, or it depends on what is the transaction or the taxpayer type. But the return or the filing of the return is quarterly. So merong 2551Q from the first to the fourth quarter with the VAT return, which the monthly VAT return is 2550M. So you filed it on the first 2 months of the quarter. So for example, lang following a calendar year period, the first 2 months of the first quarter is January and February. Now what happens in March? In March, that would already be the quarterly VAT return, which is 2550Q. Now whatever is the VAT payable or VAT tax due in 2550Q, bawas mo whatever payments made, you made in the monthly VAT return. So whether you follow for each withholding transaction, depende sa reporting period, you account for it in stages. So for example, meron kang return na monthly. So whatever is the VAT or percentage taxes withheld on a monthly basis, ibabawas mo rin yun, and for the specific quarter. So but annually, you have to annualize din. So baka merong There are 2307s issued beyond December. Definitely kasi ang reporting mo naman ng December is January, but may iba pa darating ng March. Gumagawa ka ng annual income tax return, hindi pa rin nabawas, or gumagawa ka na ng yung VAT, hinahabol mo talaga yan kasi it's in the fourth quarter eh. So, ang bayaran nun, January 25. But with regard to income tax, kailangan ihabol mo yun. Kung nakapag-submit ka na, you have to amend para magamit mo pa yung offset of the credit. So, those are the things that you have to consider, and any discrepancy will lead to any probable or possible assessment by the Bureau. Why is that? So, kasi kung income payment mo is for the previous year and then dito mo siya in-apply sa next year, hindi yan papayagan ng Bureau. So, you have to be mindful of the reporting period of which the credits are to be offset. Yun lang. I hope this is simple enough for your consumption and understanding. A call to action, please like, share, and subscribe. Claire decides to vlog, and if you find this tutorial useful, comment down below, and then let me know. If you would need some consultation, I do that for a fee, because being a mind worker, money, time is equals money. So hindi naman, I don't charge excessively, but being a professional, I charge fairly. And I just had a recent experience na I didn't say my professional fee kasi when I was expecting that the person would be fair enough to because I think I've done the same for that person in the in the previous year, but just so that instance would not be repeated, if you have any consultation with me, then we discuss what is my rate, and then if you're not fine with what I charge, then let's not do pro bono, because when you consult a professional for tax matters, you're there because you don't know. That's one. And then you're consulting a person who is knowledgeable of the subject matter. That person may be able to help you with whatever you're having in your business or in your profession. And hopefully in my few years in the practice, I'm able to come up with solutions that provide tax savings to my clients. So ganun lang din yung expectation ko. And it's an arm's length transaction. It's a fair rate charged by a professional. So there you go. Please share, like, share, and subscribe. LSS. Thank you.